All right. Well, so today I have joining me Chris Smith, who's a creative director or a group creative director at the Richards Group. Started as a copywriter and has worked his way up. And so anyway, he's been a resource for us here at TCU before. He came and spoke with our creative strategy class last semester. And I wanted to kind of pick his brain a little bit about what the creative process entails, but also how it's kind of being affected by some of the things that are happening right now. So I'm going to go ahead and move that to speaker view and make sure that he can be front and center when kind of talking about some of these things. But for context, can you give me a little bit of a background on just who is Chris Smith and how'd you get started and what your job is right now?
Well, hey everybody, Michael, thank you for having me. This is a fun diversion from what I'm doing normally right now, which is working from my house and trying to put out fires from a distance, whereas this is a whole new territory. None of us have ever seen anything like this before. I thought the big financial crash of 2008 was going to be the craziest thing I saw in advertising. This blows it away. This is crazy. So we're all just kind of trying to figure it out as we go. And that includes me and my clients. So we're all pitching in together and everybody, we're having conference calls and trying to do what we can. So one of my big clients is H-E-B, the grocery store. So as you know, this is Armageddon for grocery stores. So they're doing their best. So sorry, I'm just trying to straighten that up. There we go. They're doing their best. So we're on the end of that, just trying to help them along. So sorry, long intro, but my name's Chris Smith. I work at the Richards Group in Dallas, which is the largest independent ad agency in the country. I'm what's called a creative group head. I have two teams that work for me, and we have a group of 4 clients that we manage: H-E-B, Central Market, Favor, and Motel 6. And I also do all the work for the Dallas Wind Symphony. But yeah, it's crazy time for all my clients, especially Favor, the delivery app, Central Market, and Motel or H-E-B. So we're bashing through it. But I grew up in upstate New York. I went to Penn State. I moved here 25 years ago to Dallas. Followed a girl I met at Penn State, who is now my wife of 21 years. I know you'd think she could have done better, but here we are. And we now have 3 teenage children, all of whom you can maybe hear playing video games in the background. And I've worked at the Richards Group for 21 years. So I've been married to both my wife and my job for 21 years. So here I am talking to you. I came last semester. When was it? In the spring or fall? When did I come last time?
It was in the fall.
It was in the fall. Yeah, that was fun. That was a super fun day. So now we're doing it on contagion lockdown.
So one of the things that we're going to be talking about in the class that kind of this is initially being recorded for is just kind of what is the creative process and what do creative directors do and all of those things. So kind of to start down that road, what is a creative director and kind of what are the different tasks that usually are associated with that title?
All right. Well, by trade, I am a writer. That's my background. I'm a copywriter. But several years ago, I was promoted to creative director. So now I have writers and art directors that work for me. I am their boss. And if y'all don't know, in every creative team, there's a writer. For the most part, there's a writer and an art director. The writer is responsible for what the ad says. The art director is responsible for what it looks like. That's the easiest way I can do it. So if you are more of a design person, if you like fonts and layouts and illustration and all that kind of stuff, and really designing how something looks, you're probably an art director. If you like words and writing things and coming up with clever lines and jokes, you're probably a writer, copywriter. Some people do both. So my job is, as a creative director, I have writers and art directors that work for me. They bring ideas to the table, and then it is my job to make them better, discard the ones that I don't think are going to work or that don't work as well, so we can focus on the ones that do, and kind of help raise all the boats and make sure that the client's needs are being met, but we're also doing great creative work. And make sure everybody is getting everything they need to do great work. If I think an idea needs this, I'll tell them. If I think that one's not working so well, why don't we go with this one? Maybe take this idea from that one, put it over there. That'll make that one better. That's kind of my job.
So let me ask you this then: how does one become a creative director? I mean, obviously you said that
Bribery.
it's bribery. Well, like I as a non-creative director always kind of joke that creative directors are usually the ones who have failed more than anybody else in the room, so they knows what works and what doesn't. They just have more opportunity to do things right and wrong, that they kind of can bring that experience to the table. And so, as from a creative director perspective, is that a relatively accurate portrayal?
That's a great way to put it. Creative directors are massive failures. No, what it is true. Every creative director, they cut their teeth working for a creative director and trying to, get ideas that the whole point in this job is you want to sell ideas. You want to come up with ideas that solve the client's problem, that answer the brief, and that are good, are different, are unique, solve the problem in a unique way. So creative directors have spent, for many cases, 5 years, 10 years, decades, learning how to do that under the tutelage of another creative director. So basically at my agency, when Stan Richards decides that he has seen leadership in you, seen your ability to have good ideas, to produce good ideas, sell them, which is not, a lot of people can have good ideas, but you have to be able to sell them as well. When he sees that, then he says, okay, you could probably be a creative director. And it all tends to be on what account needs that leadership at the time. So for me, I became a creative director because I was the only guy, not the only guy, I was the guy who Stan decided did the best job of capturing the voice of Tom Bodett of Motel 6. So when he saw that account needed some new leadership, he saw that I was doing most of the writing on it, and he said, makes sense. I'm ready to promote you. This is a perfect fit. Go form a group. So my first group was me. I had nobody in it. And so I was a group head with no group. And then I got one art director, and then slowly I had 3 teams at one point. I'm down to 2 right now, but I'm trying to add a third. Things are a little in flux, but that's what it takes. It really just takes, failing a lot, throwing a lot of things at the wall, and getting better at identifying what's a good idea quicker. That is really the secret to being a good creative, is identifying good ideas quickly and making the most of them without wasting time on an idea that's either been done or isn't going to go anywhere.
So there's a lot of risk taking in doing creative work, right? It's not, I mean, you mentioned that somebody hasn't already done. So a lot of the time coming up with creative ideas is about specifically doing things nobody's ever done or seen before. You have to have some risk tolerance to be able to really succeed in that space.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to have some risk tolerance, but more importantly, you have to back up your clients, who they're the ones putting all the money out there. They're the ones who are going to spend $1 million, $2 million producing this thing, and then multiple millions running this thing. You have to, you kind of, it's funny, you have to be both kind of strict, kind of artiste, who's got the high standards, but you also have to be the guy with the warm milk, who's making the client, you got to smooth their feathers and go, it's going to be okay, it's going to work, and sort of gauge their risk tolerance. There are some things that I can show to a client, like HEB, for example, and they're just never going to do. It's just not in their personality. It's not right for their brand, but they are willing to take risks. I just have to assess what is the right risk to get them to take. And I never bring one idea. I always say, here's kind of the safe one. They're always, I try to make sure they're always good and fun, but here's kind of the safe one. Here's one that's a little edgy, and here's one that's kind of out there. You want to take a risk. And every once in a while, they pick that one. So that's kind of my biggest job is really getting my clients to hold hands along with the creatives, so that everybody's confident about what we're doing. And it's not always easy. It's not always easy. They can be very risk averse, especially when they have like some big launch or some big thing that has to work. I'll give you an example if I may.
Yeah.
we were just assigned at the Super Bowl to launch HEB's new app on their phone. And this was make or break. They needed this app to work. They needed 1 million downloads. They wanted 1 million downloads in a couple of months or something. So we gave them this, what we thought was a very risky idea, which was to make the Super Bowl commercial into a game that, like sort of a Where's Waldo spot the products game that you had to have the app to do. And if you won, if you entered correctly and you were picked, you won a lifetime of free groceries. So that was like, they figured out that was like over $250,000. And that was a risk. There was, they got a celebrity involved. There was a lot of technical stuff on the back end that had to work. They had to come up with a whole lot of money to make the prize, enough of an incentive that people would want to do it. But we ended up getting the 1 million downloads that they needed in a month or two in 10 days. So, and it's still growing. So that was a risk that paid off. So we were really excited about that. I actually didn't think they'd do it. We presented them a much more safe idea, and then we presented this one that was kind of out there, and they jumped on it. So now I'm gonna use that to go win a bunch of awards and say it was all my idea. That's also a creative director's job.
Put together award packages.
Figuring out when to take credit for a really great idea and when to distance yourself from a really crappy one.
Right. So something I hear some people, particularly students, say they say, I'm just not very creative, right? And I think there's this perception that creativity is either inherent, you either have it or you don't. But creativity is really more of a discipline, right? Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's a skill like anything else. It's a skill you can practice. That's like saying, well, I can't throw a spiral, or you know what I mean, or I'm not very strong, so therefore, well, you can get strong. You can learn to throw a spiral. Yes, some people are more inherently, born with more of a, what's the word, aptitude for it. Some people just come out super creative, but it's definitely a skill you can learn and improve like anything else. I feel myself getting better at this the longer I do it. It's like anything else. There's the 10,000 hours theory. You do something enough, you'll get better at it. And that's true with creativity. It is a discipline. It is a skill, but it's different for every single person. A lot of people think that you sit down in a room and just kind of stroke your beard and drink coffee and listen to jazz music and the ideas just appear. That is not the case. Having an idea is a physical act. You have to sit down, blank piece of paper, and start writing or typing or doing whatever you do. I use a pen and paper. I can't do it on the computer. The main reason, creativity, you can't write and edit, you can't create and edit at the same time. That's what writer's block is when the creative part of your brain is being shut down by the critical part of your brain. It's why people come up with ideas in the shower. It's because the sound of the shower actually distracts your critical brain. It's why people work so well in Starbucks, because there's enough white noise to distract that part of your brain and you can actually work. Also the caffeine. But yeah, no, it's a skill. You just have to practice it like anything else. If you watch a musician, Wynton Marsalis couldn't play trumpet like that the first time he picked it up. Yes, he was raised in a musical family. He had a musical aptitude. He was probably spoon-fed it from a very small child, but he worked and worked and worked and practiced. And now he's one of the best in the entire world. Creativity is just like that. Anyone can be creative. You just have to decide, I'm going to do what it takes.
Awesome. Well, I know that there's a lot of discussion of like the different steps of the creative process. Do you feel that your process at this point mirrors that still, or do you think that's something you evolve your own system? I'm talking about like, the preparation and incubation and
everybody, there's a part of the process that is, the process basically falls into 3 basic camps. These are different for every person, how they do them. but it's basically ideation is the first one, where you just brainstorm, you come up with the idea. The second one is incubation. You got to sleep on it. And then the third one is, you can call that any number of things, but that's sort of decision or evaluation. But yeah, every person has their own, sorry, is my, okay, good. Every person has their own system. You just have to figure out when and how that works for you. I know me personally, I do my work very early in the morning. Some people work at night. Some people like after lunch. Me, if I have an idea to come up with, I get up at 4 or 5 in the morning and I make some coffee and I sit in my house, which is quiet. My kids are still asleep. Nobody's emailing me. Nobody's texting me. And I turn off all distractions, turn off email, turn off the phone. And I just write. And I use a technique that I stole from Luke Sullivan in his book, Hey Whipple, Squeeze This, which, do you use that as a textbook?
We do not, but I encourage students to read it.
A lot of people use it. It's kind of a standard inside look at the advertising industry and how to do it. I recommend it. Again, it's called Hey Whipple, Squeeze This by Sullivan, the greatest copywriters of all time. And he has a technique in there where he takes a blank piece of paper and he just starts writing, this is an ad about, and he just keeps writing. And then about 2/3 of the way down the page, you run out of all the brief stuff, all the information they gave you in the brief, and then you start making stuff up. And that's when you get creative. And you start having to think of new things to say about this product or this service that are not on the brief in front of you. That's how I work. Then you got to sleep on it. That's 2. You got to walk away. Because of the way your brain works, you need to literally let your brain kind of cool off solving this one problem and then come back and look at it. It's why if someone is asking you, what was the name of that actress that was in that movie? She's the one. She's kind of crazy. She got the lips and she wore it. I can't think of her name. And then you talk about something else and 5 minutes later you go, Angelina Jolie. Like it just pops into your brain. Sorry. That's how I would describe Angelina Jolie. A little crazy, wears blood around her neck, whatever. That's the same thing that happens with creativity. You have to let your brain rest and then look at it with fresh eyes, because again, you can't create and evaluate at the same time. And I found that if I look at something the next day, in case of a screenplay I wrote, 5 years went by and I looked at it, and it's like it was written by an entirely different person. And you can immediately see the problems, immediately see what's working, what's not working, or have fresh thoughts that these had started. So that's how I do it. And everybody has kind of their version of that. Some people do it better with a partner. Like they like to sit down with their partner. Each of them have a blank piece of paper and they just start talking it out. Me and my partner, who, when I work with one, we prefer to come in with ideas that we've each had and then bounce them off of each other, and sort of we get kind of a running start that way. But I need to work by myself, at least for a little while, just to kind of wrap my head around it. That's my process.
Fair enough. That's great.
Are these answers too long? I don't mean.
No, this is perfect. This is perfect.
Right. Sorry, I'm a writer. A lot of words. Art director. I just hold up colors and shapes.
So on that topic, we talked about being a creative director a little bit. Can you give anybody advice on just being a writer, being a copywriter, and what are some of the base skills, and then maybe even a little bit about the importance of understanding SEO now as a copywriter, any of those types of things? Just if somebody's interested in pursuing that path, what are things to know?
Well, the first, so I tell the story a lot when I'm talking about this. The best advice I ever got about being a writer came from a jazz trombonist. All right, in 9th grade, I was the summer after 9th grade. I was taking I was into jazz, playing jazz. I played trumpet, and I was taking a jazz improvisation workshop for the summer workshop. It was super fun, but there was this famous trombone player named Doug Sertle who was teaching the class, and this was summer of 1987, I think. So I'm a lifelong metalhead, so I was like metal guy and taking a jazz class, and he was like, what jazz trumpet players do you listen to? What jazz musicians do you listen to? And I said, I'm more of a metal guy. I don't really listen to a lot of jazz in my spare time. I just, I really like metal. And he goes, well, that's fine, but you will never be a great jazz player. Just plain and simple. If you don't listen to the greats, you will never be great. So writing is exactly like that. If you don't read great writing, if you don't study great advertising, collect your favorite ads, look at ads, evaluate ads, think about them, think about writing. Whenever you will never really be a great writer. You can't really learn to be a great writer in school, no offense. You can just learn the tools, and then you develop your own systems, your own chops, and you just get better. Again, do it, the better you get at it. So advertising or anything, art direction, writing, you have to make it your hobby. You have to make it kind of what you do. It's the same way you work out to stay in shape physically. You need to write and read and look at other work you admire. Find what you don't like, find what you do like, just to stay in shape mentally and increase that skill. So I'm a voracious reader. I love to read. I don't get as much time to do it as I want, but I've discovered I'm Audible. So now I listen to a lot of great writing. And I'm still learning. I've been doing this 25 years and I'm still learning how to write.
So one of the things that you kind of touched on just there that I want to tie into and get your insight on is that it's one of the things that you can get in an academic setting is feedback, right? That's one of the things that you have the opportunity. It's kind of a safe place to fail almost. Like you really have the opportunity to try things and explore and get that feedback and grow there. Once you get out of that, once you graduate and go out into the world, like how do you find that mentor or who mentors you at this point in your career?
Well, at this point in my career, that's a great question. You get plenty of feedback in this business. most of it bad. I've made a career of this. You could, I'm won awards and everything. You could say that by any measure that I am quote unquote successful at this. And several times a week, I drive home from this job going, oh, I suck. I've lost it. I'm out of ideas. I've had my last good idea. I can't write, whatever. You just surround yourself with people who you think are as good or better at it than you, and you just use them as a benchmark. One of the cool things about working at the Richards Group is we have a lot of talented people, particularly writers, a lot. And I am amazed in meetings to see how they solve problems, how creative they are, how they come at things I never would have thought of. So when I come into a meeting with a bunch of other people, my goal is really, am I going to be able to hang with those guys and gals? And, I kind of don't want to, I want to make a good showing for myself and my team. And then we talk about it, and you have to be able to take criticism. This job is nothing but criticism. I get told, like I said, I get told I have bad ideas all day, every day. And I have to figure out how tomorrow I'm going to come in. Okay, this idea wasn't great. Tomorrow I'm going to come in, I'm going to have another one. And you know what? Invariably, if I work my process that I use to come up with ideas and trust myself, I will come up with an idea that I like even better. And hopefully someone else does too. And when I say trust yourself, that's key. There is a tendency in this business, in this discipline, that if you don't have an idea right away, you panic. And I felt it. I have a meeting this afternoon. It's 6 o'clock in the morning. I don't have a script yet. I don't have a good idea. Oh crap! You panic, and you just have to have enough confidence in yourself and your process to go, nope, I will come up with some. Not be great. It might not be the best thing I've ever come up with, but it'll be good. If I just sit down, start writing, something good will come out, and it's my job to figure out how to present that.
So with that, do you have any other tips for somebody who's kind of entering the business on ways to not take a lot of criticism personally? Because I know that sometimes you bring a new idea to the table and it's a beating. And so it's easy to run away from it. Are there any coping mechanisms or healthy coping mechanisms or things that you
Yeah, healthy. Healthy is a key word. There are plenty of coping mechanisms. I have a cabinet full of them over there.
right. But,
Which, if you notice, I'm sitting in front of the books, not in front of the whiskey.
right. But
No,
what are things that you've learned or that you might kind of advise somebody on how to cope with like very direct feedback?
yeah, it's really hard. I always joke that my job is every day I have a baby and I put the baby in the middle of the table and then 10 people hit it with sticks and the baby is my idea. And that's kind of how it feels. It feels like they are attacking you. Now, if they are good at giving feedback, it won't feel that way. But some people, frankly, don't care about your feelings. They have a deadline. They have a job they need solved. They have an ad they need on the air, and they want it good, and they really don't care that that they hurt your fee-fees when they said they didn't like the ad you showed. So that's always hard. That's always hard. And to say you never take it personally is a lie. It's unrealistic. We're human beings. Criticism is never fun or easy. But what I do is you look at other things you're proud of that you've done, and you say, I know I'm capable of it. I know I'm good. I know what I'm doing. They're paying me and my agency money because I know what I'm doing. And again, I see it as a challenge, and I put a little chip on my shoulder that is, all right, you didn't like that idea, I'm going to bring you a better one, and you're going to, and you're going to eat your words. Everything you didn't like about that last idea, you're going to love about this one. I also pick my battles. Sometimes you can save an idea. If they don't like it, they poke holes in it, but you can plug those holes and you can fix it and make it work. Sometimes you gotta know when to let it go. Know when to fold them, if I may quote the late great Kenny Rogers, who we just lost last week. We miss you. One of my favorites. If you gotta know when to fold them and just go, okay. And that's one of the things I have to tell my teams sometimes. That's my job as a creative director is I'll give it one more try, but I feel like this idea is already pretty poisoned. So I help them decide, can we make this work or do we have to go back to the drawing board? But I look at going back to the drawing board as an opportunity. I really do. I'm like, okay, I took a swing. I missed. I'll swing again. But yeah, it gets hard. And coping mechanisms, I would just say, I tell people to have a creative outlet that is not related to your job. So almost every creative person you'll meet in this business has something else they do creatively for themselves that is not beholden to a client or the agency world. I work with a bunch of creative directors who, one guy is a writer, but on the side, he's a cartoonist. He has actually like an agent and he draws like cartoons. Another guy is a very accomplished artist who has gallery showings all the time. Another guy is in a band and makes music. And every Saturday, he gives himself 1 hour to write a song. And that's kind of his creative ritual, his outlet that's just for him. We all need those. We all need, for a while I was writing screenplays. Now my creative outlet is getting my kids to various places, but I'll get back to it.
I would say that you do a lot of improv. You've done improv
Yes.
for years, and I would say that is certainly qualifies.
Yeah, I have the full disclosure. I've worked as an improv comedian for over 20 years. I used to perform at a club every single weekend, 4 shows a weekend. I don't do that anymore, but I still do it occasionally. And yeah, that was a great outlet. That was, but again, that's another situation where when you're doing comedy, you get a lot of negative feedback there too. So, but you just enjoy the good feedback more. There's no better ego boost than making a room full of people laugh. That'll make anything bad go away. I promise. Thank God for the 2-drink minimum. That helps you be funnier.
So, I have one other kind of like formal question, and then we'll just kind of wrap up with whatever other kind of feedback you want to.
Sure. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you taking time today. So in the situation that we're in, this is unprecedented. This is like the first time that we've professionally or otherwise seen this scenario. Can you talk a little bit about how did your team before do any remote work? And like to some degree, obviously with emails and whatnot when you're on the road and traveling, but
Mhm.
how is the process changed and how is it evolved? And then how do you think that when everything's said and done, it's just going to go back to normal, or is there like a new normal now that we're working through this?
That's a great question, and everybody has a different opinion about that. I can say from my agency, it will go back to mostly what it was, because my agency, the guy who runs my agency, Stan Richards, is not a big believer in working from home. He he's not a fan, and he likes people being together. Um, he That's why he's our whole agency has stairs. You're encouraged to take the stairs so you run into people. He just feels like things are better face to face, in person. Um, what's funny about that is we do so many of our client meetings now as teleconferences or conference calls or whatever. But for the way our agency functions day to day, I think we're going to go back. I'm curious to see what the rest of the industry does. I think a lot of people are already kind of working like this, but I don't think it's ideal. Um, I think it comes down to a question of, you can work from home, but should you always work from home? And I find the agency um, environment stimulating. I'm an extrovert, so I like being around other people. I like activity. Um, People I know who are career freelancers, they're like, I've been quarantining myself for decades. Like, this is nothing new to me. But it's new to me, and I'm having to adjust. In fact, I just downloaded Zoom because we've never used it, and for this, and then tomorrow with my group, we're having a coffee meetup just to say hi to everybody because we haven't seen each other in a while. And you develop friendships in this business, and I feel like my group kind of is a family. So I miss seeing them. I actually miss interacting with them. So we're going to do that in the morning. But it'll be interesting to see. I think people will figure out. You saw a lot of the memes that went around. So you're saying that meeting actually could have been an email, like, which is true. I think you'll see more of this, but I think people will really want to kind of be back in their routine and be back in their world, because ad agencies are fun. Like, it's a fun place to work. And I just think after being cooped up in their houses, most people will be jonesing to get back to their routine. But I could be wrong. I could be very wrong. Who knows how long we're going to have to do this. It's a little crazy,
So
but we're staying busy.
how has this impacted your process? Because obviously everybody's not in the same room, and so there's a lot of, I mean, in advertising, there's a lot of collaboration and brainstorming, and then
Mm-hmm.
even in particularly in creative, like just going and peeking over somebody's shoulder and think.
Yeah.
So what is your process of remote work look like as a creative director with a creative
Well,
team?
I had one last week for Central Market where I went, and me and the other, so I split that account, the creative duties on that account, with our design firm called RBMM, because that's a heavy visual, heavy design um, account. So they're the best to do it, but it's technically a Richards Group account. So we kind of tag team on it. And so I went to RBMM, and me and the other creative director were the only two people in the building, because most people were working from home, but I live a mile up the road from there. So I went and stayed 6 feet away across the table. But we had the big screen up, and we were doing a loop up or a Zoom or one of those things. And people were putting their work up, and it took a little while, to figure out the technical stuff. But basically, I was kind of shocked at how well it worked. What makes it work is that everyone understands that we are working under really atypical, really bizarre circumstances right now. So everybody's a little more patient, a little more, you can tell everybody's being a little more collaborative and a little more, no, after you, no, after you. What do you think? Everyone's trying to be a little more polite and just get through this together and still do great work. And the work that we came out of that meeting, I walked out of there like thrilled. It was a really productive meeting. I feel like there's kind of an all hands on deck mentality right now. Maybe your students are feeling that because you guys are in a completely different world too. This is my heart goes out to you guys because this is not the college experience y'all signed up for, especially having Michael as a professor. But the I mean, wow, short end of the stick. No, but I mean, we're all just trying to figure it out, you know. So every meeting is kind of a new. All right, what are we doing this time? And if it doesn't work, we're like, okay, we three will have a call and we'll figure it all out. We're all holding hands through it, you know, social distancing and then washing them, holding hands metaphorically.
Right. Yeah, I found that actually the students have adapted really well, but particularly with this, you know, if you think about the age group of the students and everybody being Gen Z at this point, like there's not a time that they really didn't have access to some kind of video recording or video.
No, absolutely. And they're probably way more used to this than I am. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, so I've been very impressed with the resiliency of, like, today we had our first class online, and like everybody showed up, everybody was there, nobody really had a ton of questions. They're just ready to kind of they were ready to jump in, and so
it's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, it's not ideal, but look, when it really comes down to it, we all have to stay in our houses for a while. There are worse things.
Well, and some of our best ideas, some of our best ideas come from when things stop working, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're the most innovative when everything's interrupted, because you know it'll be interesting to kind of see what creative, technical, and otherwise evolutions kind of come out of the next 3 months while everybody's having to figure out how to adapt.
Well, even the fact that so many people are like this weekend twice, I tuned in. Sorry, I using old people terms. I joined in to a friend of mine who was doing a Facebook Live from Ithaca, New York, just playing his guitar and singing songs and taking requests. There's a lot of people who maybe do that kind of stuff all the time. That's not my thing, but I did it a couple times this weekend because I was just like, oh, this is a new experience. Let's give it a shot, you know? And it was cool. It was a really fun experience. So we'll probably do it again.
Yeah.
But again, people have been doing this all for, you know, people do FaceTimes and that kind of stuff. They're all used to it, but working like this is new to me.
Yeah. So my last question is just kind of in wrap up. Is there any other piece of sage-like advice that anybody's ever given you that you think you would want to pass along, or just any kind of parting information to students who are
Let me stroke my beard sagely.
I mean,
I'm technically not touching my face.
Yeah. We're going to have freshmen and seniors and you know, a broad range of students seeing this, of some of them getting ready to go out into the world, and some of them, you know, just kind of learning what this industry is. So
yeah. Wow, that's a good question. Yeah, sage advice, I would just say, and I don't mean this is going to sound like a cliche, but be humble, be confident but humble. And by humble, I mean be open to the idea that your solution is not the only or the best one. There is no one way to solve a problem, particularly creatively. That's why it's creative. I keep a poster in my house of 200 different chairs. I'm looking at it. 200 different chairs designed by famous people, Eames, Le Corbusier, you know, Mies van der Rohe, just famous chairs that you've seen at every museum and, you know, fancy lobbies of hotels. And it's basically, I look at it because it's 200 ways of solving the same problem. Design a chair. All right. And they're all right answers. All of them are right answers. Some may be better than others, more comfortable, less comfortable, more striking, more familiar, whatever. All chairs. They all solve the problem and answered the brief. Your idea is not the only way to solve a problem, and your client is going to have been spending much more time thinking about this problem than you have. All right. That's the one thing that I have to remind myself is this is what my clients do all day. I used to have a dairy as a client, and they spent 8-10 hours a day thinking about the size of the curd in cottage cheese and like the bottling, the shape of the bottle of this chocolate milk, and is it more appealing if it's square or if it's a little round? Like this kind of stuff that I don't care, like would drive me crazy. I'd blow my brains out. But this is what they do all day. So they know your business. You could study it as hard as you want. They are the experts on their business. You are the expert on creative. You have to listen to them. And every client I've ever had, if they've like come to us from another agency or have come to me from another group or whatever, they all say the same thing. You heard me. When I show them the work for the first time, they go, you listened. You heard what I said, and you solved my problem. You listened to me. Clients, everybody, they just want to be listened to. They will trust you to do the great work. Just listen to them and hear what they have to say because they're closer to it than you are. So be humble enough to listen to an expert and say, I defer to you on your business if you defer to me on how to communicate it, and together we'll do great work. So a lot of people forget that. A lot of people think it's me against the client, and it's really not. It's really not the agency or the creative against the client. It's really the agency working with the client against the client's fears and obstacles and challenges. That's it. And I know that sounds a little cliche, but it's, if you can have that relationship with a client, this career will be much easier and much more rewarding, and you'll have clients longer.
So I thought of one other question before we wrap up. And
Sure.
you talked about the brief, talking about the creative brief. And so from a creative director perspective, is there any feedback that you would give to account teams and account planners on how to write more effective briefs?
Yeah. Creatives have tons of opinions on how to write more because if we can't come up with a good idea, guess what our first excuse is? The brief sucked. Trust me. We've all pulled that we've all played that card. There's two things. First off is be single-minded. I've used this cliche many times, but if I throw 6 tennis balls at you, you're not going to catch any of the tennis balls. If I throw 1 tennis ball at you, you will catch it. Same thing with messages, with communications messages. If I try to pack every possible thing I can say about this product or this client, this brand into a brief, no one's going to get it, especially nowadays. People are looking at it, swiping things on their phones. They basically get the logo and, they get almost nothing. So what is the one thing you are going to tell them? Which is hard because clients are spending a lot of money and they maybe have a lot to say about their product and they want to say it all. And it's our job to go, no, say one thing and say it well, and then people will get it. The other one that I would, ready to go. So be single-minded. Oh, and also don't forget that you find it with clients, you find it with creatives. You forget that you're not just a marketer, you're also a consumer. So don't forget how you consume advertising. I find a lot of clients will be like, well, if we say this, then blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, you don't watch commercials that way. Like you don't watch TV that way. Why would you think your target would watch TV that way? That's not how people watch TV, but they're marketing people and they think that everyone is paying as much attention to their marketing message as they are. And they simply aren't. So just remember that you are one of a million things that person's going to hear that day. And if you get 10 seconds of their attention, like congratulations, that's quite a victory. So you better make sure that what you're telling them in that time is important, relevant, and entertaining. That's all. So just don't forget, we find that we'll find consumers who blah, 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 and they'll do it. No, that's just not how people listen to the radio, or that's not how people watch TV or use their phones. Just don't forget that part. Put yourself in the consumer's shoes.
And so having like that clear, concise, simple message is key to helping the creative team be able to.
Yeah, absolutely. I personally, I don't do well with briefs that are just do something cool. We get that every once in a while for like Super Bowl assignments for big clients like Chrysler or whatever. And they really are just like blow me away. Like the brief I get a lot of times is just blow me away, which I, I personally, I guess I'm just left-brained enough where I need like, no, I need a problem to solve. Like I need, what do I have to say? Like, then I'll be creative about it. But if it's just like, just do something cool, that's really hard for me. Like I said, I need something to grab onto. Um, so that's just, and I found if you tell me at least how big my sandbox is, then I'll build a really cool castle in it. But if I don't know what I'm working with, I struggle a little. So I try to make sure my briefs from my planning team are, you know, just just tell me, even if what I'm saying is ridiculous, just tell me what I'm saying. And then I'll say it really, then I'll find a cool way to say it. That's all.
Well, awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, any other last minute thoughts?
Yeah, I just say, guys, thank you for listening to this. And if you're still listening, I appreciate it. And just be well, be safe. This is a crazy time. Take care of each other. It is kind of nice to see people all sort of coming together, help out. So yeah, we're all going to get through this, and then we're going to look back and see what we did to get through it together. So please be safe and be well, and keep each other. Just check in on people we haven't talked to in a long time. That's what I've been doing. Is just checking in on people and just making sure they know, because everybody's feeling a little isolated right now. Just making sure people know that other people are thinking about them. That's all I'm doing. So good luck, guys, and thank you for having me, Michael. This was a nice treat in a day where I'm literally, you can't see it, but I'm in my bedroom slippers and my pajamas. I literally put on a clean shirt so I could do this. So thank you, guys.